Hello everyone, a warm welcome to you. Hope your week's been going well and it's time for the 2-week roundup. For those people not initiated with these sort of videos, it's the time we take stock, have a bit of a look back at the games we've reviewed over the last 2-week period and try and put them in some sort of rank or order. It's just a bit of fun. You might disagree with the order. If so, then comment below with your particular order. Now, before we come to the top 6, as always, we'll look at the pinball table we looked at as we gradually go through the Pinball Arcade Season 4. Background's a little bit different this time round. We thought we'd mix it up a bit. I have had a bit of a watery backdrop, but now we have fire. Yes, I hope we'll be okay. Anyway, the first table we looked at in the Pinball Arcade, getting back on topic, was a Jackpot, based on the real-life table by Williams from 1995. It was a DLC by Farsight Studios in 2015 with the Pinball Arcade. Now, this table is like a trilogy. Tables beforehand are the original Pinbot, and Bride of Pinbot was one of my favourite tables of all time. So how does Jackpot differ from them? Well, it looks very similar to Pinbot, but more refined. And it takes on a few other, what should we say, casino sort of aspects really. By getting hands and various blackjack things, I'm struggling to remember it now, that's good, isn't it? But yeah, I prefer Bride of Pinbot out of the three there, so not a bad table, well worth looking at. And the next table is a similar in sort of like theme really to Jackpot, which is basically a robot person, but Xenon again by Farsight in 2015, based on the real life table by Bally from 1980, so quite an early table. But this one is quite a long way ahead of its time, as a rather sexy robot, this one, with lots of speech, including oohs and ahs. What's really stand out on this table is like the tube shot, which is a large cylindrical tube on one of the ramps. So that was Jackpot and Xenon, both quite similar. Now, we're getting quite close to the end of Season 4 now. I was going to purchase Season 5. All these are being reviewed on the PlayStation 3. But I'm a little bit perturbed because apparently no tables have been released or converted for about 5 or 6 months now. Whether they're going to release them all together, but I don't want to shell out the money for Season 5. There's only 3 tables and the another 7 don't actually come to light. So we'll keep a close eye on that. So might go back to doing a few Zen Pinball 2 tables. But anyway, variety is the spice of life. So let's have a look at the top 6 videos then, or the top 6 games. In 6th place I put Inspector Gadget, a racer on the Game Boy Advance by Bit Managers in 2003. Now, I really love the cartoon, bring back warm elements of childhood. Great characters as Inspector Gadget himself, Penny and the dog called Brain. But this game is awful. It's a bit like influenced by Mario Kart, like a lot of these races are, but this is just so slow. It's not fun to play, the power-ups aren't good, it's a bit clunky. The classic Inspector Gadget music, boo boo, is not there. Yeah, it's a very bad game and deserving 6th place in my humble opinion. Let's move on from this. It's Wreckage. In 5th place on the Commodore Amiga, I put 3D Pool by Firebird from 1989. Now this game, although it's a clever attempt, and I do like the 3D views, they've tried something there, but just like Steve Davis's World Snooker, which I reviewed a few months back, it has a typical flaw. If you're going to make a pool or a snooker game, the playability has to be perfect, and you need a good aiming mechanism. That can make or break the game. This hasn't got any aiming mechanism. You can't see a cue, there's no dotted line across the table, so how are you supposed to line anything up? Also, when you're messing about with the angles, it's a bit hard to see if you're looking straight or slight at an angle, and combine that with trying to guess the physics of a pool table, then it's an absolutely steaming mess. Now, I've been told that it's even worse on the ZX Spectrum, which I haven't reviewed as of yet, so we're bound to come to that at some stage. But 3D Pool, good idea, doesn't really come across that well. And in 4th place, a fighting game. We've reviewed a few fighting games in the recent weeks on the Game Boy Advance, but this is Guilty Gear Advance Edition, published by Sammy Corporation in 2002. Now, if I was going to pick up a fighting game on the Game Boy Advance, it certainly wouldn't be this one. Not a bad game at all by any means, but not as good in my opinion as Tekken Advance Fighter, or the Street Fighter series, or the King of Fighters EX and EX2, which I reviewed very recently. It's the same sort of premise, lots of fighters from around the world all got together for some large fight for reasons unknown. The frame rate isn't brilliant on this compared to the other fighters that I've already mentioned. You can get a bit out of it by learning the special moves, as you do with any of these games. Backgrounds are nothing to write home about, and the graphical characters are quite small, so, you know, that's why I have it put behind those fighters. Not a bad game, but not brilliant compared to the rest of the competition. So, the bottom three this time: in 6th place, Inspector Gadget Racing by Bit Managers in 2003 on the Game Boy Advance. In 5th place, 3D Pool on the Commodore Amiga by Firebird in 1989. And in 4th place, Guilty Gear X Advanced Edition by Sammy Corporation in 2002. So, yeah, let's move on to the top three. Let's see what games impressed me this time round. Now, as I say, you probably have these in a different order. Nostalgia has a lot to do with it. What games brought you back old memories there and your experiences growing up. But in 3rd place this time round, I put Fast Food, this time on the Commodore Amiga, published by Codemasters in 1991. In my opinion, this game works a lot better on the 8-bit system I originally reviewed it on, the ZX Spectrum. It does okay, feels a bit like a public domain game, doesn't feel like a full price game, but you control an egg called Dizzy round a maze, and every 5 levels you complete you get an extra life. You must avoid the bad guys and of course eat all the food, which come in guises of chicken, a burger, milkshake, all moving around the maze, so it's all constantly in moving. A nice fun game, although, you know, it's not blowing your socks off, it's not really displaying the most of what the Commodore Amiga can do. You get a few games like this where they converted a game from 8-bit systems and to put them on a 16-bit system, and you think it should be a lot better, but for some reason it isn't. It loses its charm a bit. To a lesser degree, you get back ones where something comes out on a 16-bit then released on an 8-bit, which doesn't quite work as well, and there's a lot of dodgy arcade versions as well where computers aren't really up to the task. But Fast Food, I put it in 3rd place. Not a bad game, but prefer it on the 8-bit system. A bit of a Pac-Man clone, that one. Now, in 2nd place then, moving along, a military game on the ZX Spectrum 48K. A classic said by many, it's Beachhead by US Gold in 1984. Now, this is like a military strategic game. It takes a while to get used to knowing what you're actually doing, but it's essentially a collection of lots of different mini games. That's right. Now, the first game, it's all a top view. The first game, you control a boat or a number of ships going through a minefield, and you must guide them through, well, past moving torpedoes without getting collided, and save as many ships as you possibly can to get to the next stage. Other stages include a ship sort of one where you control the elevation and the power of a gun, a bit like tanks, I suppose, and must destroy 4 enemy ships. You also get attacked by aircraft as well. And then later on, which I didn't get to actually in the review, there's a tank stage, which is a little bit slow. And the final stage, you defeat some sort of major gun turret. If you're successful, they wave a white flag. I didn't get to that point. But luckily, if you leave the game running and don't play it for a while, it goes into a demo mode and does show you actually all the levels, which is quite a nice touch. So that is Beachhead. It did have a sequel called Beachhead 2, funnily enough, which I'm sure I'll come to maybe in a few weeks or maybe a month's time, but it's certainly on the list. Now, when I review a game, quite often a few of you will put down similar games or other games I should look at. I might not review them straight away. Occasionally I do catch up with them though, but they do actually go on the list as potentials to do. So keep doing that and I'll write them down if I can track the games down and well, I can give you a decent review of it. I would do. Text Adventures don't tend to make a very good review, so I tend to avoid those a little bit, although there might be the odd one. So what does that leave in glorious 1st place this time round? What's beaten everything? Well, it was a recommendation actually, and quite a weird game. On the ZX Spectrum 48K again, it's SHOCKWAY Rider, published by Faster Than Light in 1987. So 2 80s games, 1 and 2 this time, both on the ZX Spectrum. What's this game all about? Well, it's a bit unusual, but you control this, I'm sure he's not supposed to look like this, but you control this character as a bit like Elvis Presley, and you're in the future. You must ride the SHOCKWAY Rider, which is like 3 conveyor belts going through a town, and by jumping on the different conveyor belts, eventually you reach the end of the stage. But the rub of it is there are muggers jumping from platform to platform, and if they hit you, you lose your head. There's pedestrians as well, which, a bit like the Matrix, they can turn into muggers and then kill you as well. But there's lots of head losing in this game. Stage 2, you get more and more obstacles, and you sleep backward and forward, and also go on the sidelines, collect weapons as well to throw at your foe. Bit hard to explain, easier to watch than explain, so if you're a bit confused, go and watch the review of SHOCKWAY Rider. So, the top 3 this time then, just rounding it up so we all know where we are. In 3rd place, on the Commodore Amiga, Fast Food by Codemasters in 1991, not as good as the Spectrum. In 2nd place, Beachhead on the ZX Spectrum 48K by US Gold in 1984. And the big winner this time, maybe a shock winner, it's a shock name, a SHOCKWAY Rider on the ZX Spectrum 48K by Faster Than Light back in the good old year of 1987. Now, thanks for watching the videos again in this 2-week period. I hope I'm easing your boredom by changing the backgrounds every now and again. We used to go to different countries and I gave you facts, but I didn't think that was overly popular. Sometimes one of these is popular, sometimes it's hardly viewed at all. But it's good to have a sort of index of this thing, don't you think? Anyway, have a great weekend, enjoy yourself, keep watching the vids and commentating. I always like to hear from you. Until next time, take care of yourself, and goodbye.
Goodbye.